Hola. This is how we're going to get started with this. I'm going to be giving you a bit of a guidelines on how I'm expecting this presentation to go in a minute. But the idea is for this to be a little bit more like come and go, and not only me just talking for like 20 minutes, which is not that interesting, trust me. So I'm going to start off with a question. Who knows who these are? You know who these are? Okay, no names. Anybody knows the name of these people? Yes, amazing. Tick, Trick, and Track. These are the names of these guys in German. But why are they here? Does anybody know? Any clue, any guess, anything? So Tick, Trick, and Track, the little guys that you see here on screen, were actually the name of the very first parachains that ever connected to a relay chain on Polkadot Kusama or any testnets. In fact, Tick, Trick, and Track were the name of the first three parachains that got connected to the Rococo testnet a long time ago. One other important thing to mention about this, and you'll get why I'm mentioning this in a minute, is when Tick, Tick, and Track went live on Rococo, like a couple of weeks afterwards or almost a month after that, we decided to open Rococo for the community to start testing on their parachains. But this was almost end of December. We had to have a poll back then, December 2020, whether people were willing to try out becoming a parachain on Rococo before like New Year's and Christmas or after that. And the community decided to postpone it. So only Tick, Trick, and Track were the very first three parachains that Rococo ever had, and therefore any other relay chain publicly on our ecosystem. Now, why am I saying this, right? This is trying to give you a bit of context on how long I've been here in the ecosystem, which is not much, right? It's only 2 years, but it's actually more, it's almost 3, but I always try to refer to these years as dog years, so I count them as 21 for some reason. But I've been here ever since no parachain existed anywhere, and I've been working a lot with different parachains in this ecosystem to become parachains on Polkadot. So that's why what I would very much like to talk about today and discuss it is what are the things that I've seen in these 2 years of working together with these teams so that we can know how to be better, we can know what we're doing right, and we can continuously having this discussion in the future to always get better, and better. I'm that guy, I'm Santi. Full name is Santiago, but I like Santi, makes me feel a little bit younger. That's my Twitter, and I do what we call builder success at Parity, which mainly is what I just said, right? I work with a lot of builders into helping them with becoming parachains on Polkadot. So before we get started, a little bit of house cleaning here. First one is, this is a exclamation mark presentation. I'm not a developer, but I know that this means not, right? I guess. So this is not a regular presentation. As said before, I would very much like to make this as interactive as possible. All questions, all comments, everything is encouraged. Even if you say, I completely disagree with what you put up there, amazing, let's have a bit of a talk about it. If we have enough time, we'll open it completely. If not, we can take this conversation offline. And ideally, this is a conversation that we will have going forward in the future a lot more. And a couple of things that I wanted to talk about this as well before we get started is, I sort of like categorized these ideas that I had in mind to share with everybody today into these 3 main categories, right? So where you see like that tick, that means that, in my personal opinion, this particular topic is working well. When you see this sort of like warning sign, it's like, yeah, it's working, could be better. We can make some tweaks to make it work a lot better. And when you see like the skull, it's like, hey, maybe we need to pay a little bit more attention into this. So far, so good. Everybody understands. Tick, Trick, and Track, perfect. Now let's go. Let's get started. So the very first thing that I wanted to do, and this is also like aligned with the things that were said yesterday in the other stages, is I do personally believe that if we look at the broader ecosystem that Polkadot has, there's a very good following and understanding of the entire Web3 vision, right? People are trying to build in line with what we believe we're trying to achieve here. And that seems like little, that seems like not so important when we are heads down trying to build stuff, but in the end, it's the purpose that drives us, that help us move forward, and that is something that we should never lose from sight, right? So what I see is that all the projects here adopt this Web3 vision, even though sometimes this means going through a lot more hurdles, right? It's not that easy to get there if I want to do it right, but the commitment that I've seen in this ecosystem in broader terms is always in this direction. The overall mindset, right, and probably this has to do as well with the way that one can acquire a slot and whatnot, is we're building here for the long term. I'm not here to deploy something and just run away. That's not what we are seeing, again, in general terms. All in all, most of the discussions that I had with all the teams that I've been in contact with in the last years is, I'm here to build a long-term sustainable project. And last but not least, there's always this idea of creating real value by trying to solve real problems. The second thing that I think we're good at, or we're getting even way better at, is this ecosystem collaboration in both levels, technical and business-wise. And this is something very, very interesting, right? The whole idea of Polkadot is the sum of its parts is better. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? In fact, I didn't remember exactly how to write this sentence when I was preparing the presentation, and I think that Aristotle or something like that said this in a math paper a long time ago. Just, I don't know, random fact. But this is sort of like the ethos that we have on Polkadot, right? When we have all these chains connected, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And that is true as well when we're talking about collaboration. We're talking about the ecosystem. The Polkadot Forum in itself, launched a couple of months ago, almost a year, I would say, has become this sort of like place, like square, platea, whatever, that people discuss ideas. I really, really encourage us to continue going in this direction. For the new people joining the ecosystem to add their thoughts onto this, because it really, really helps us shape what we as a community believe the future should look like. And any idea is welcome. That's what I've seen so far. It's true that some ideas are highly contested, and that's not bad when it's done with respect, but nobody says, that person's an idiot, we're not going to hear them anymore, right? And that is very, very nice. Another thing that I think we're doing good is cutting-edge technology, and when I say this, it's not only on the Polkadot level, substrate level, but also on all the teams that are building on top. I do believe that this ecosystem has a very high level of technical savviness. People understand the technology that they're dealing with, people understand the solution that they're trying to propose, and they do it in the best way possible. There's very strong development teams that are always pushing the boundaries of the underlying technology, and we should continue doing that. And last but not least, these deep systems that are being created in this network that we call Polkadot are usually built and understood and crafted in reliable and efficient ways. And that is something that we should definitely not lose sight. Now, if you didn't realize, the little icon on the top changed, right? So this is like danger. Good, but not ideal. We can do it better. One thing that I would like to encourage everybody to start looking into, current protocols, new protocols, future protocols, old protocols, every protocol, is to do a lot more testing, right? Testing becomes very, very important. We're dealing with decentralized solutions that require a lot of like social coordination between different parties, and if we do not test things enough, we might make mistakes that take a very long time to recover. So this is something that I think I would encourage our ecosystem to look a lot more into and trying to get better at, right? Running these systems requires a lot of deep testing. We need to have different environments to test these things. There are a lot of like tooling that's coming up that's very helpful to achieve this. Think about chopsticks that was discussed yesterday, Subminute that was discussed yesterday. All these things help us get better. And I also would encourage people that think that they can have solutions to improve the overall testing in this ecosystem, to bring them forward, to discuss them, and try to make them a common good that people can use to have better systems. And last and not least, sort of like a mindset that we always try to push forward, is this idea of locally tested, then test it on a public testnet as well, and then do the deployment as a basic infrastructure, right? Try to follow these steps. Do not go from one place to another, because then things are not going to work out. And this is sort of like the first warning that I wanted to give out to people. And now I'm going to drink a little bit of water. What did I do? Yeah, there we go. The second one, experimentation. So I was talking before about how I believe that this ecosystem has a lot of like very technical savviness people that know what they're doing, that push the boundaries of this technology, that really try to do always the best. But I do believe we still need to experiment with these base technologies a lot more. I know it's not easy. I know it's not that there's perfect documentation to see, let's see how it like push this button right here, right? But test it out, experiment with it. Push the technical boundaries of this system. Push also the financial boundaries of this system, right? Usually innovation that we see around, it's more on a technical level. Why don't we see this a lot more on a social level as well? Try different stuff, see what sticks. Try to push these things a lot more. Summoning a little bit the crazy part here on this ecosystem, right? Kusama. If Kusama is not for this, what is it there for, right? And I've been talking with a couple of people this past couple of days. Let's use it, right? It's there for all of us. It's a common good that we are supporting as an ecosystem in order to test things out, to experiment a lot more, right? Let's use it for Polkadot. Let's try to see what this Kusama network tells us to make it better for Polkadot in the future. And last but not least, I wanted to also give a little bit of an idea here on the way that I would do it is experimentation by itself is a little bit dangerous because sometimes it could happen that you nail it down in a very good way and you say, yeah, this is amazing, this is working, but when you want to go back and replicate it, you have no idea how you got there, right? So experimentation without certain sort of like understanding, without certain format doesn't really work out. So one thing that we've been discussing is this idea of experiment, yes, but try to have some sort of like hypothesis that you might want to tackle. Why is it that you're experimenting with this? And then try to summarize somewhere the learnings that you had along the way. All right, parachain building, right? I think this is another area that as an ecosystem we could be doing a lot more of. And Bjorn was talking yesterday about this idea of how can we improve the development experience in this ecosystem, right? And we had talks today, like Open Zeppelin that was saying, hey, I'm here to build some more tooling for this ecosystem. I want to bring libraries for this ecosystem. And this is something that we can definitely get a lot better at, and that we all together as an ecosystem can push forward a lot more. Particularly, I think that runtime upgrades in itself are a killing feature that Substrate has. But runtime upgrades used in the wrong way become a killing feature because they kill our networks, right? So we need to be very careful of it and mindful of it. But if we can nail this thing down, if anybody has ideas on how to get this process working a lot better and a lot safer for the parties out there, while still trying to maintain this shared security that Polkadot provides, then this is a very good topic to discuss, right? Because if we nail this down in a way that's not a problem or not a risk for teams anymore, we're going to see a lot more of this, which means a lot faster product market fit, which means a lot faster products in the ecosystem, which means in the end more users. The entire registration of a parachain is non-trivial. I didn't talk with Gav about this before his presentation yesterday, but yeah, he talked a lot about this in itself. I think this is something to pay attention to as well. And participating on these auction mechanisms, crowd loans, bidding, renewal, not renewal, and all of that requires a lot of strategy, which I think that these on-demand parachains that are going to come in the near future are going to help us a lot with. But definitely this is an area that I would like to see some more discussions, some more things happening. And I believe that Parity as a crafter of Substrate, but also the ecosystem as a great user of Substrate has a lot to offer and a lot of input to give. And we should all together try to figure out how to make this journey better. This is going to be a bit of a hot take here, but it's also something that I wanted to bring forward as well. Polkadot in itself is a network that's bringing something to the blockchain ecosystem or the blockchain industry that we haven't seen a lot of in the past, right? If we think about the most common platforms out there, you have these general computation platforms, right? Like Ethereum, you have Bitcoin you have Lightning Network, whatever, but it's more like transfer of this one asset. But Polkadot gives a lot new level of freedom with a lot new rules as well, right? So I would encourage us a lot and everybody in this ecosystem to how can we rethink utilizing all the other projects as key infrastructure that this ecosystem can provide. How do we maximize this new concept for blockchains called asynchronicity? If we think about it, on every single other blockchain out there, there's not that many asynchronous operations, right? Everything happens on the same sort of like system. Well, that's not the case for Polkadot anymore. XCM, in my opinion, is going to be a key building block, right? The way that I think about Polkadot, in essence, is that it's a blockchain that offers builders two main things: shared security and communication. Without shared security, communication gets tricky because now how can I trust the person right next to me or the chain next to me if we don't have the same level of security? So XCM in itself, with its shared security, is going to be a key building block. And although I just said one slide before that runtime upgrades are a killing feature because they're good but could kill your chain as well, I do think that we need to use it more, right? We need to push this a bit more and iterate faster and find a product market fit a lot faster so that our users are happy with what we're putting forward. We changed again, right? So now we have the skull. Maybe I should have done this in different orders to make it like a bit more interesting. But anyways, we had the skull, right? So now we're going to the things that I think we should really, really, really start paying attention to, right? I talked before about, yeah, we should experiment a bit more. Yeah, hello, Kusama, right? What are we gonna do with that and what not? Well, Rococo is out there as well, right? I don't know how many people know Rococo here, right? Probably the people that are building know this network. But besides that, I don't know how many people know it, right? So I think that a public call that we could do is, Rococo is Polkadot's actual public testnet. Let's use it. Let's break Rococo, see what happens, right? There's no value here. Let's do whatever we want. We are thinking about proposing opening HTTP channels by default amongst every single chain in Rococo. I don't mind it. Whoever is connected can talk with every single other party out there and see what happens. We are redesigning from Parity's perspective, and this is something that's coming quite shortly, the entire onboarding experience through Rococo. Although I'm saying this, let's use it more, it's true as well that the process is a little bit cumbersome sometimes, and we need to figure out a way of getting better. And last but not least, something like Rococo can help us find the limits of these relay chain capabilities. And I'm pretty confident this is the last one. There's 3 minutes left on the clock here, so we'll see if we have time to open for questions. But one other thing that as an ecosystem we need to get better at as well, and we are getting there. I think that we did very good progress with this one topic in the last year, is to be independent first, right? There's still a lot of dependencies and high dependencies on specific bodies, specific participants in this ecosystem, and that's not the way that we should be looking at. Substrate Stack Exchange has been a game changer in this developer experience, in my opinion. There's a lot of information there, and every single time me or everybody that's in contact with the builders in the ecosystem talk with somebody and they ask us a question, we ask them to post it there, and we try to go on and answer that question as fast as we can, because that's the best way for future builders not to depend on anybody, right? There's this public access to information, and that is very, very important. But it's not only about asking questions, it's also about answering. So please, please, please go ahead. And when you see things that have not an answer and you think you know the answer to, just answer it. Why not? If it's not the right answer, somebody else will come. There's going to be some public debate and we're going to figure it out. But answering is as important as asking. And last but not least, of course, better documentation and examples for people to follow along in all the levels of the stack is going to be very, very important. But yeah. Now it's your turn. I said before there's only 1 minute 50 left in the clock, so I'm not so sure we're going to be able to open this in the floor right here, but I'm going to be around still so we can discuss it a lot more. As said, anybody can call me out and say, hey, I don't agree with what you just said. Fantastic, let's discuss it. But I also would encourage us all as an ecosystem to start thinking in these terms that we just went through, to start having this conversation on this particular process. This is not working. What can I do to make it better? And propose it and discuss it and see what happens. Again, the idea is for all of us to contribute. There's a lot of brilliant minds in this ecosystem. Let's just put them to work. Thank you.
Hold it. See, you're running into your question time. We have time for exactly one question.
Ah, okay.
So if you think that you have a poignant one, then raise your hand. If not, maybe we opt out. All right, we got MPK over there.
So historically speaking, the onboarding path for projects have been very parachain centric. Regarding Gavin's talk yesterday about catering more to the tinkerers that tend to end up with on the EVM stack nowadays, how are you viewing the role of builders in Substrate Builders program and the suite of these programs? What is happening there? What's the plan? Can you talk a little?
Thank you, Matthias, very much for that question. I'm going to say two things. The first one is, I don't know if anybody realized, a lot of people in the ecosystem know me as the one with the Builders program and whatever. I didn't mention the Builder program only like never in this presentation, because I do think that with that last point of independent first, we need to start moving away from these things as well. Support is always going to be there, right? It's always going to be there for absolutely everybody, but we shouldn't be thinking of one only option to becoming a parachain. And following that with the second part of your question is, I see parachain building in like 3 main buckets. The first one is having the capability to actually build the runtime of your chain. The second one, which is as important and probably as difficult, has to do with actually deploying this chain. It's non-trivial. And the last one is things around it. I don't know, front ends that everybody can use and reuse, tutorials, whatever, right? Things like that. For the first part, there's going to be a lot of push into these templates that anybody can use to get started fast. And I know that the Frame team has been doing a lot of work and is spending a lot of work into making that even easier for template builders and for people to continue iterating. And again, their key feature is runtime upgrades. So getting better at that is going to be important. And for the second part, which is deploying, we need a lot more tooling in terms of deployment, in my opinion. I'm working on it. Anybody can work on it. But also, in terms of connecting to the network, these pay-as-you-go parachains, used to be called parathreads, are also going to help us a lot into making sure that these tinkerers come in and play. So we reduce the barrier of entry a lot. Hope that answers.
Excellent. Great response. If you have more questions for Santi, feel free to reach out to him in real life. If you're online, then you might want to Google him.